Well, you join us live here in Tehran as Israeli bombs continue to rain down on Lebanon, and President Trump suffers a blow in Congress which will potentially hamper his efforts to end his war with Iran. Now, we'll be live in Beirut and Washington shortly, but first here in Iran, they may have lost dozens of senior political and military figures in the war that's further damaged an already struggling economy. But the Islamic regime has survived, and today people have been marking two very significant moments in Iranian history. A special holiday twice over in Tehran today, 37 years since the death of the Islamic Republic's first supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, and going back to the 7th century, the day Shiite Muslims believed the Prophet appointed Imam Ali as his successor. But at street celebrations, they are more gripped by contemporary events and not above teaching children who to hate. There's a cue to fire darts at the enemy, complete with anti-Semitic cartoons of Netanyahu. Which is the most popular target, Trump or Netanyahu?
Trump.
We're not warmongers, we seek peace. But there should be a war. There has to be a war. America and Israel should be annihilated. They should be wiped off the earth.
In any war, don't both sides lose?
They are the losers. Iran is not the loser. Iran will never be the loser. Iran is victorious. The losers are Israel and America.
This is a Shiite religious festival, so you would expect the people here to be conservative, supportive of the authorities and the war effort. But there's something else going on here as well, clearly, which is that after 3 months of struggle, people want a reason to feel happy. The food and drink is all laid on at a time when treating the kids is getting too expensive for many. A Shahid drone takes pride of place on one of the stands. Do you think people in Iran feel like celebrating right now?
Yes, we are. We are sad because of our loss of our great leader. We are sad of losing our civilians. I lost some of my friends. We are sad inside, but we are happy that this sadness is not staying with us.
How do you think this will end?
I believe this will end when the world gets free from the Zionists. This is the time that we are living. The whole world is angry, is actually at the maximum anger and hatred toward the Zionists. We believe the whole world will live in peace when the Zionists go away. Not the Jewish.
Go away where?
Look, not the Jewish. The Zionism. The ideology of the Zionism, that they feel they are superior to everybody, even to the Christians.
Despite weeks of Israeli and American bombing, you can drive for miles in Tehran without seeing any obvious destruction. But in the east of the city, we came across this. The clear-up is well underway in this mostly residential street. The people who once lived here still searching for things to salvage 3 months later. This was residential property and it is devastated. But the reason it was caught up in this is because this was the headquarters of the local Basij, the paramilitary force loyal to the IRGC who keep order in areas like this. So the people who lived here in residential property were all caught up in it. But this was the target.
When the first missile hit, I was here. I was thrown against the wall, and then I ducked here.
So this is what happened. Mahia lived across the street. He's lucky to be alive. A few meters away, a friend was filming, looking on in horror.
I love my country and my land. I love Iran. I love the people of Iran, but I don't want them to be in this situation.
Do you want change?
These questions are a bit complicated. If you ask me if I want change, I would say yes. But what kind of change? Reforms have to be made. My job is painting furniture. If my worker tells me, "Master, you made a mistake here," I have to admit that I have made a mistake.
As they save what they can, the government has told them these homes will be demolished and rebuilt. But the neighbours explained the value of real estate near military or official buildings will not recover. Without the change Mahia speaks of, there's little confidence a peace deal now will prevent them being bombed again in the future. Well, with me here is Professor Mohammad Marandi, who is from Tehran University and was also part of the Iran negotiating team for the JCPOA nuclear deal negotiated under the Obama government. Where are we tonight? I mean, Israel has held off Beirut, but is still hitting southern Lebanon. Does that satisfy Iran's demand for the ceasefire in Lebanon to mean something?
No, not at all. For that has stopped Iran from firing missiles at the Israeli regime. The Iranians have said that if they strike Beirut, because what the Israeli regime wants to do is to level the city, and the Iranians said, if you do that, then we strike Israel. What would lead to a ceasefire, or what would lead to an agreement between Iran and the United States, one element would have to be an end to the war in Lebanon, but also an end to the killings in Gaza.
I mean, isn't the basic problem that there is absolutely no trust between either side? And certainly the Iranians don't trust the Americans because of what happened during previous negotiations. If there is no trust, how can you have a deal?
Well, it's only one side. The other side has no claim to mistrust. They waged 3 wars against Iran. In 1980, they pushed Saddam Hussein to attack Iran, gave him chemical weapons to use against us. I survived 2 chemical attacks. Last year, we're nearing the anniversary of last year's war and this year's war. Both of these wars were...
Well, you're making my point.
Yeah.
So, I mean, why would Iran trust what the Americans say they will do?
We don't. So the facts on the ground are important. One major problem that we had during the nuclear negotiations and the nuclear deal in 2015 was that the Iranians, after the agreement, the Iranians carried out their commitments and the Americans didn't. So what the Iranians are doing this time around is they're saying we will only carry out commitments when the other side carries out its commitments and we see action on the ground being taken.
Now, I mean, I'm here after a couple of years, and there is definitely a different feeling from the people we've been speaking to, the people we saw at the festival today, and people talking about change. You know, that a new supreme leader, a new set of people at the top may mean that the government technically is what it was, but there may be a different future for Iran. Do you see that yourself? Do you accept that?
I've lived in Iran my entire adult life, except for 3 years when I was in the UK for my PhD. And there's always been change. Iran is a very dynamic society, very unlike the narrative that you have in the West. So there's going to be change, there has been change, and that's natural for Iran.
But I've also seen where people are reluctant to talk to us because they're afraid. There were besiege officers nearby. You know, they didn't want to appear on camera because they perhaps were more critical. There are lots of people we would like to talk to here. We people who are protesting earlier on in the year. I mean, do you think these voices who could be part of the new Iran?
Well, you're interpreting that anyone who does not want to approach you, that they are fearful of the government. People in Iran do not trust Western media in general. Go and ask that the police, go and ask the police or the emergency services during these 90 days, whenever someone would be suspicious of a car, ordinary people would be calling the police. We are under
Look, people are always
state
suspicious
of
of
war.
the media, I'll give you that.
Yeah.
But you also know that there are people who are not supportive of the government. Do you think there is any way of bringing them into Iran's future? Now there is effectively a new set of people at the top.
They're always a part of Iran's future. Among my own students, you have kids from all sorts of political persuasions. But something that has happened in these 90-some days is that many of the young kids who are under the influence of Western media and the Persian media blasting in from the West with Western government support, they've seen a new reality. They saw how brutal the West has been to Iran, how all the Western countries refuse to condemn the United States, and instead they condemn the victim in 2 wars. And right now you have a siege on Iranian ports, basically a starvation siege. So a lot of these young kids who used to think that the West, maybe it's our fault, maybe it's Iran's fault, and the West, they are good, and they see the world very differently. Not everyone, but the mood has changed in Iran.
As fuel prices rise for American drivers, so does public opposition to the war there. And last night, led House of Representatives added its voice. 4 Republicans joined Democrats in approving a war powers resolution to block Donald Trump from continuing the conflict without congressional approval. A vote Trump, of course, says is meaningless and that he will carry on doing whatever he wants. Our US editor, Anushka Astana, looks at the state of play.
A short time ago, the United States military began major combat operations in Iran.
Operation Epic Fury.
The supreme leader of Iran is dead. Iran then saying it had closed the Strait of Hormuz.
First came the strikes, then the retaliation.
Iranian attack targeting the Al-Udeid airbase.
Now Americans say this war is over and that they've won.
The Navy is gone, their Air Force is gone, everything's gone.
But almost 100 days on, the Strait of Hormuz is still closed, and there is no deal.
The yeas are 215 and the nays are 208.
So as Congress finally votes to limit Donald Trump's war powers, how did we get here, and when will this end? Many think it started here on February the 11th with a visit from Israel's Prime Minister. But the former National Security Advisor, who was in the room for similar meetings during Trump's first term, is not convinced.
Do you think Benjamin Netanyahu persuaded him to go to war?
I don't buy that argument. I think Netanyahu made exactly those same points in the first term, and Trump simply didn't buy it. I can't imagine Netanyahu came up with something new or different in the second term. There must have been some other factor. I can't explain it.
He can point to one key factor, Trump's confidence after taking out Nicolas Maduro. But from Venezuela to Iran?
I know the Pentagon well, and they could give you a list of 30 reasons why Venezuela and Iran are different, which they are.
Because it turned out that Iran could punch well above its military weight. Forcing shut the Strait of Hormuz rippled out all the way to American petrol stations and has caused a political headache that Trump's Secretary of State has had to grapple with this week.
Did you warn President Trump before the Iran war began that this conflict would drive up cost on gas, food, travel, and shit? Yes or no?
The president and the full administration was aware that there would be consequences to action, but the consequences of Iran having a nuclear weapon were worse.
John Bolton is the ultimate Iran hawk. He believed in military action to oust the Iranian regime despite those same warnings. But not like this.
He didn't make the case to the American people, what I think is a pretty impressive case why regime change is necessary. Nor did he make the case for any other objective in launching the strikes. He just didn't prepare the people, which is sort of politics 101. Similarly, he did not prepare Congress. He didn't brief our allies, not just NATO allies. He didn't brief the Gulf Arabs.
The worst thing for Bolton is it's the same regime. So now it's all about that nuclear deal. And Trump is a deal maker.
They want very much to make a deal. We'd like to make a deal, too. We have to have a deal. We've been called by the other side. They'd like to make a deal very badly. I mean, Iran is dying to make a deal. I can only tell you that. Hopefully those people will make a deal that's going to be great for everybody.
But unfortunately for the president, the art of this deal is proving elusive.
We're working on a deal, and if that happens, fine. If it doesn't happen, that's okay, too. We'll do it the other way.
So can his negotiators, Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, force a breakthrough?
Well, I don't understand why Jared and Steve Witkoff are involved in this at all. I think it's Marco Rubio's job, and I think Rubio probably thinks it's his job, too.
Do you know that?
I don't, but if I were Secretary of State, I certainly wouldn't want 2 New York real estate dealers negotiating nuclear questions with Iran.
Last night, 4 Republicans joined Democrats to try to limit Donald Trump's war powers. The president says he's bored of negotiations, isn't thinking about American finances, and doesn't care about a vote in Congress. But what he cannot dismiss are the very real consequences of his war. And look, in many ways, Donald Trump is right. That vote is merely symbolic. It still needs to go through the Senate, and even if it does, which is unlikely, guess who needs to sign it? Donald Trump himself. Now, you heard in my piece from John Bolton, I should stress he has very much parted ways with Donald Trump. In fact, the president tried to prosecute him over the mishandling of sensitive documents. There has actually been a plea deal today. But when it comes to Iran, Bolton has been absolutely critical. He was the one who persuaded Trump to leave Barack Obama's 2015 Iran deal, the one you've been discussing. The critique was that the inspection regime was too lax, but also, in Trump's words, it involves sending pallets of cash to the Iranians, which is why, as Bolton put it to me today, the president is in between a rock and a hard place. Because, yes, he's degraded the Iranian military, but the regime hasn't changed. The faces are different, but the ideology is the same, so perhaps still the nuclear ambitions, and they have the same demands: money, pallets of it, perhaps, which is why this is so tricky for Donald Trump, because he desperately wants a better deal than Obama. But many think that the best he can hope for is what Obama got in 2015 without a war.